The clock on David's truck dashboard showed 11:47 p.m. as he pulled out of the auto shop parking lot. Christmas Eve, and he was just getting off work. Again. He rubbed his tired eyes and let out a long breath that fogged up the windshield for a moment. This wasn't how he'd pictured spending Christmas Eve when he was younger. Back then he thought he'd have a house full of family, maybe a wife who'd wait up for him with hot chocolate, kids who'd be too excited about Santa to sleep. Instead, it was just him and his 8-year-old son Tommy, and even Tommy had given up waiting for him tonight. The snow was coming down harder now, big fat flakes that caught in his headlights like tiny dancers. David drove slowly through the quiet neighborhood streets. Most houses had their Christmas lights on, warm yellow glows spilling from windows where families were probably gathered around trees, maybe watching old Christmas movies or putting together last-minute toys. He turned onto Maple Street, the same route he'd taken home every night for the past 3 years since the divorce. The street was empty except for the occasional car parked in driveways, covered in a fresh blanket of snow. David was thinking about whether he had enough energy to wrap Tommy's bike when something caught his eye. 2 small shapes huddled together on the sidewalk about 50 feet ahead. At first, he thought it might be garbage bags or maybe some Christmas decorations that had blown over in the wind. But as his headlights got closer, his heart nearly stopped. Those weren't bags. Those were children, 2 little girls sitting on the curb in the snow. David hit the brakes a little too hard and his truck slid slightly before coming to a stop about 10 feet away from them. He sat there for a second, not believing what he was seeing. The girls couldn't be more than 6 or 7 years old, and they were wearing what looked like thin pajamas. No coats, no hats. Nothing but those little cotton pajamas with some kind of cartoon characters on them. He grabbed his work jacket from the passenger seat and got out of the truck, leaving the engine running so the headlights would stay on. The snow crunched under his work boots as he approached slowly, not wanting to scare them. "Hey there," he called out softly when he was still a few feet away. "Are you girls okay?" Both children looked up at him with wide, frightened eyes. They were definitely twins, identical in almost every way except one had slightly longer hair than the other. Their faces were red from the cold and he could see they'd been crying. They were holding each other so tightly it looked like they were afraid one might disappear. "We're waiting for Mommy," the one with longer hair said, in a small voice that barely carried. Over the wind, David felt his stomach drop. He looked around the empty street, searching for any sign of a car or another adult. Nothing. Just his truck's headlights cutting through the falling snow and the distant glow of Christmas lights from sleeping houses. "Where is your mommy?" he asked, crouching down so he was at their eye level. He kept his distance, not wanting to make them more scared than they already were. The girls looked at each other, having some kind of silent conversation that only twins can have. Finally, the other one spoke up. "She said to wait right here. She said she'd be right back." "How long have you been waiting?" They looked at each other again. Kids that age don't really understand time the way adults do, but David could tell it had been a while. Their lips had that blue tinge that comes from being too cold for too long, and their pajamas were damp from sitting in the snow. "A really long time," the first girl whispered. David's mind was racing. Every protective instinct he'd developed since becoming a father was screaming at him. These children needed help and they needed it now. But he also knew he couldn't just scoop them up and take them somewhere. There were rules about this kind of thing, procedures to follow. "Listen, I'm going to call some people who can help us find your mommy, okay? But first, let's get you girls somewhere warm." He pulled out his phone and dialed 911, then gently offered his jacket to the twins. They hesitated for a moment before the one with longer hair reached out and took it. They wrapped it around both of them like a shared blanket. "One, what's your emergency?" "Hi, I'm on Maple Street and I found 2 little girls sitting alone in the snow. They say they're waiting for their mother, but it looks like they've been here for a while. They're really cold." As David gave the dispatcher the address and details, he kept watching the girls. They weren't crying anymore, but they looked so small and lost sitting there in the snow. It reminded him of Tommy on the nights when David had to work late and couldn't be there to tuck him in. That helpless feeling when you're little and the world feels too big and scary. "Can you tell me your names?" David asked after he hung up the phone. "I'm Amy," said the one with longer hair. "This is Anna." "Those are pretty names." "I'm David. The police are going to come help us find your mommy, but they said it might take a few minutes because of the snow. Do you want to sit in my truck where it's warm while we wait?" The girls looked uncertain. David understood. Their mother had probably taught them not to get in cars with strangers, which was smart. But this was different. This was an emergency. "We can leave the doors open if that makes you feel better," he offered.
"And you can see everything from inside."
"It's just really cold out here." After another one of those twin conversations with their eyes, Amy nodded. David helped them up, noticing how their little hands were like ice cubes. He guided them to his truck and lifted them into the passenger seat, making sure to leave both doors open like he'd promised. The heat from the vents started working immediately, and he could see some color returning to their faces. "Better?" he asked. Both girls nodded, still holding on to each other. David stood outside in the snow, close enough to talk to them but far enough away to not seem threatening. He found himself thinking about Tommy, safe and warm in his bed at home. What if this was Tommy out here scared and alone? What if David never came home one night and Tommy was left waiting? Anna," he said gently. "Can you tell me what your mommy's car looks like?" "It's blue," Amy said. "And it makes funny noises when she starts it." "Did she say where she was going when she'd be back?" The girls exchanged another look, and David could see they were trying to remember exactly what their mother had said. Anna spoke up this time. She said she had to go do something important. She said we were good girls and to stay right here and not move until she came back. David felt a chill that had nothing to do with the December wind. Something about this whole situation felt wrong. What kind of important business could someone have at nearly midnight on Christmas Eve that required leaving two small children alone in the snow? In the distance, he could hear sirens getting closer. Help was coming, but David already knew this Christmas Eve was going to be different than any he'd ever experienced. Looking at these two little girls, so brave and trusting despite everything that was happening to them, he felt something shift inside his chest. Sometimes life puts you exactly where you need to be, even when you don't understand why. The police car pulled up behind David's truck with its red and blue lights flashing against the falling snow. Officer Martinez stepped out, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and the patient look of someone who'd dealt with situations like this before. "You called about the children?" she asked as she approached. David nodded toward his truck where Amy and Anna were sitting, still wrapped in his work jacket. "Found them about 20 minutes ago, sitting on the curb. They say their mother told them to wait here." Officer Martinez walked over to the truck and crouched down to the girls' level, just like David had done. "Hi there, sweethearts. I'm Officer Martinez. Can you tell me about your mommy?" Amy, the braver of the two, spoke first. "She had to go somewhere. She said to stay right here and not move." "What does your mommy look like?" "She has brown hair like us," Anna said quietly. "And she was wearing her red sweater, the one with the snowman on it." Officer Martinez asked a few more gentle questions while David stood nearby, feeling more worried with each answer. The girls didn't know their address. They couldn't remember their mother's full name, just that she was Mommy Linda. They had no idea where they'd been living lately. "Girls, I'm going to look around for your mommy's car, okay? David here is going to stay with you." Officer Martinez stood up and walked David a few steps away from the truck. "Something's not right here," she said in a low voice. "These kids have been out here longer than 20 minutes. Look at their clothes." David had noticed it too. The pajamas weren't just damp from the snow. They looked like they'd been worn for days. There were food stains on the front and the fabric was wrinkled like they'd been slept in. "And their hair," Officer Martinez continued. "When's the last time someone brushed it?" David's heart sank further. Now that she mentioned it, both girls had tangled, messy hair that clearly hadn't been combed in a while. Amy had what looked like dried food stuck near her ear. "I'm going to call this in and have someone check the area for abandoned vehicles," Officer Martinez said. "Can you stay with them while I do that?" "Of course." David walked back to the girls while Officer Martinez got on her radio. Amy was looking around nervously. "Where did the police lady go?" she asked. "She's just talking to some other officers to help find your mommy," David said. "She'll be right back." "Are we in trouble?" Anna whispered. The question broke David's heart. "No, sweetie. You're not in trouble at all. You did exactly what your mommy told you to do. You stayed right here like good girls." "But it's really cold," Amy said. "I know. That's why we're going to figure this out and get you somewhere warm, okay?" David found himself thinking about what to do next. He couldn't leave these children here, but he also wasn't family. He wasn't anything to them except a stranger who happened to drive by at the right time. Officer Martinez came back looking grim. We found a car matching their description about 2 miles from here. Blue sedan, parked at the bus station downtown. It's been there for hours. David felt his stomach drop. Bus station? Security footage shows a woman matching the mother's description getting on a bus around 9 p.m. Alone. The weight of what that meant hit David like a punch to the chest. These little girls hadn't just been forgotten or lost. They'd been left here on purpose. What happens now? He asked. We'll have to take them to Child Protective Services. There's an emergency placement facility about 30 minutes from here. They'll be safe and warm, and we'll start the process of trying to locate other family members. David looked at Amy and Anna, still huddled together in his truck. They had no idea what was happening. They were still waiting for their mommy to come back. What's the facility like? David asked. Officer Martinez sighed. It's clean and safe, but it's Christmas Eve. They're probably already overcrowded, and with the holiday, most of the regular staff is gone. The girls would likely be sharing a room with several other children. David imagined Amy and Anna in some sterile room with strangers, wondering why their mother never came back for them. He thought about Tommy at home, sleeping peacefully in his own bed, surrounded by his own toys and the promise of Christmas morning. Is there another option? David heard himself asking. Officer Martinez looked at him carefully. What do you mean? I mean, could they stay with someone temporarily? Just until after the holiday? Until you can figure out what to do next? Are you offering? David wasn't sure when he'd decided, but somehow he had. Maybe. What would that involve? Well, you'd have to pass a quick background check. We'd need to verify your identity, make sure there are no red flags, and it would just be temporary emergency placement. Probably just a day or two. David thought about his small apartment, about Tommy, who was always asking for siblings, about these 2 scared little girls who needed someone to care about them. How long would the background check take? I can run it right now from my car. Give me your license. While Officer Martinez ran his information, David walked back to the girls. They were looking tired now, the adrenaline of being scared wearing off and sleepiness taking over. Hey girls, he said softly. We found your mommy's car. Both girls perked up immediately. Is she coming to get us? Amy asked. David's heart broke a little more. How do you explain to children this young that their mother had left them? How do you make them understand without destroying their world? She had to go on a trip, he said carefully. And she wanted to make sure you were taken care of while she was gone. When is she coming back? Anna asked. I don't know yet, but until she does, some very nice people are going to help take care of you. Officer Martinez walked back over, giving David a small nod. You're clear. Clean record, steady job, own your apartment. And I see here you have a son? Tommy, he's 8. How do you think he'd feel about having some temporary house guests? David smiled for the first time that night. He's been asking for brothers or sisters for years. I think he'd be thrilled. All right then. Let me make some calls. 20 minutes later, David found himself signing temporary emergency custody papers in the front seat of a police car, while Amy and Anna slept in his truck. It felt surreal, like he was watching someone else's life unfold. This is just for a few days, Officer Martinez reminded him, until we can locate other family or make more permanent arrangements. I understand. And David? What you're doing. It's a good thing. These girls needed someone to care about them tonight, and you stepped up. That says something about who you are. As David drove home through the snow with 2 sleeping children in his truck, he wondered what he was going to tell Tommy. He wondered what his ex-wife would say when she found out. He wondered if he'd completely lost his mind, but mostly, he wondered how 2 little girls in pajamas had managed to change everything in the space of one snowy Christmas Eve night. David pulled into his apartment complex parking lot at 1:30 in the morning. The snow had stopped falling, and everything looked peaceful under the streetlights. Amy and Anna were still asleep in the back seat, curled up together like 2 puppies. He sat there for a moment, engine running, trying to figure out how to do this. He had a 1-bedroom apartment. Tommy slept on the couch most nights anyway because he liked falling asleep watching TV. But where would the girls sleep? What would they eat for breakfast? He didn't even have any girl clothes for them. One step at a time, he told himself. First, get them inside and warm. He gently woke the girls. Hey, we're here. This is where I live. Amy opened her eyes first, looking around confused. Where's our house? This is my house, David said softly. Remember, you're going to stay here until we find your mommy. Anna started to tear up. I want to go home. David's heart ached for them. I know, sweetie. But right now, this is the safest place for you. I have a little boy named Tommy who's been sleeping, but I think you'll like him. And in the morning we can have breakfast and figure everything out. He carried Anna while Amy walked beside him, still wrapped in his work jacket. The apartment building was quiet, everyone asleep on Christmas Eve. David fumbled with his keys, trying not to wake the neighbors. His apartment was small but clean. Tommy was asleep on the couch, just like David had expected, with the TV still on, showing some old Christmas movie. The 8-year-old was sprawled out with his arms and legs everywhere, the way kids sleep when they feel completely safe. David set Anna down gently and showed the girls around. This is the living room. That's Tommy. And this is the kitchen, and the bathroom is right here. Where do we sleep? Amy asked, looking around the small space. David realized he hadn't thought this through very well. Well, I was thinking you could sleep in my room and I'll sleep out here with Tommy. He gathered some clean sheets and made up his bed for the girls. They stood in the doorway watching him, still holding hands. Everything about them looked so lost and uncertain. Are you hungry? He asked. Both girls shook their heads, but David noticed Amy's stomach growl. Kids that age don't always know when they're hungry, especially when they're upset. How about some milk and cookies? It is Christmas Eve after all. That got a small smile from Anna. Santa cookies? Something like that. David found some leftover cookies Tommy had made at school and poured 2 small glasses of milk. The girls sat at his kitchen table, which suddenly seemed too big for such small people. They ate quietly, looking around at this strange new place. David, Amy said after finishing her cookie. Yes? Is Tommy your little boy? He is. Where's his mommy? David wasn't sure how much to explain to them. She lives somewhere else now. It's just me and Tommy. Anna nodded like this made perfect sense to her. Like how it was just me and Amy and our mommy. The simple way she said it made David's chest tight. These girls had clearly been through a lot even before tonight. Let's get you ready for bed, he said. Tomorrow is Christmas and we'll figure everything out then. He helped them brush their teeth with spare toothbrushes he found in his medicine cabinet. Their pajamas were dirty, but he didn't have anything else for them to wear. Tomorrow he'd have to figure that out too. As he tucked them into his bed, Amy looked up at him with serious eyes. David? What is it, sweetheart? Are you going to leave us too? The question hit him like a sledgehammer. These little girls had been abandoned once tonight already. Of course they'd be scared it would happen again. No, he said firmly. I'm not going anywhere. I'll be right outside on the couch if you need anything. Promise? I promise. David sat with them until they fell asleep, which took longer than he expected. Every time there was a small noise from the apartment building, one of them would sit up and look around anxiously. Finally, exhaustion won out and they both drifted off. David went back to the living room and gently shook Tommy awake. Hey, buddy, wake up for a second. Tommy rubbed his eyes and looked at his dad groggily. What time is it? Late. Listen, I need to tell you something. We have some visitors. Who? 2 little girls named Amy and Anna. They needed a place to stay tonight, so they're going to be here for a few days. Tommy was fully awake now, sitting up on the couch. Really? Like sisters? Sort of, but Tommy, they're scared and sad right now. Their mommy had to go away and they don't understand why. So we need to be extra kind to them, okay? Tommy nodded seriously. At 8, he was old enough to understand that sometimes kids needed help. Are they sleeping in your room? Yeah, I'll sleep out here with you. Can I meet them tomorrow? Of course. But remember, they might be shy at first. David spent the next hour lying awake on the couch, staring at the ceiling and wondering what he'd gotten himself into.
He kept
thinking about Amy, asking if he was going to leave them too. What kind of life had these girls lived that made them expect adults to disappear? Around 4 a.m., he heard quiet crying from his bedroom. He got up and peeked in to find Anna sitting up in bed, tears streaming down her face. Hey, what's wrong? He whispered, sitting on the edge of the bed. I had a bad dream. Mommy was calling for us, but we couldn't find her. Amy woke up too, immediately reaching for her sister. It's okay, Anna, I'm here. David felt that protective feeling again, the same one he got when Tommy was hurt or scared. You're both safe here. Nobody's going to hurt you. But what if Mommy comes back and can't find us? Anna asked. David didn't know how to answer that. The truth was, their mother wasn't coming back. The police had been clear about that. But how do you explain that to a 6-year-old on Christmas Eve? If your mommy comes looking for you, the police officers know exactly where you are. They'll bring her right here. It wasn't exactly a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. Sometimes you have to protect kids from truths they're not ready to handle. Okay, Anna said, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. Try to get some more sleep. In a few hours it'll be Christmas morning and Tommy will be so excited to meet you. David, Amy said as he was getting up to leave. Yeah? Thank you for letting us stay here. The simple gratitude in her voice made David's throat tight. You're welcome, sweetheart. As he walked back to the couch, David realized that in just a few hours, everything about his and Tommy's quiet Christmas was going to change. He hoped he was doing the right thing. He hoped he could be what these girls needed. Most of all, he hoped that somehow, some way, this would all work out. Outside, the first hints of dawn were starting to show in the sky. Christmas Day was beginning, and David had no idea it would turn out to be the most important Christmas of his life. David woke up to the sound of whispering. For a moment, he forgot where he was and why his back hurt from sleeping on the couch. Then he remembered everything. The snow, the girls, the police officer, the emergency custody papers. He opened his eyes to see Tommy sitting on the floor next to the couch, talking in hushed tones to Amy and Anna. All three children were still in their pajamas, and the girls were peeking around the corner from the hallway. And that's my dad, Tommy was saying, pointing at David. He fixes cars and he makes really good pancakes on Christmas morning. Amy whispered something back that David couldn't hear. No, he's not scary, Tommy replied. He's the nicest dad ever. One time I broke his favorite coffee mug and he didn't even get mad. He just said accidents happen. David smiled despite everything. Tommy had always been good with other kids, but seeing him try to comfort these frightened girls made his heart swell with pride. Good morning, David said softly, sitting up slowly so he wouldn't startle anyone. Dad, Tommy jumped up excitedly. Amy and Anna are really nice. Anna likes the same cartoons as me, and Amy knows how to braid hair. The girls looked uncertain, still staying close to the wall. They looked tiny in David's oversized t-shirts that he'd found for them to sleep in after their pajamas got too dirty. Merry Christmas, girls, David said gently. How did you sleep? Okay, Amy said quietly. Anna just nodded. Are you hungry? Tommy's right about the pancakes. It's kind of our Christmas tradition. For the next hour, David's small kitchen became the center of unexpected Christmas magic. Tommy chattered nonstop while David cooked, telling the girls about every Christmas tradition their little family had. Amy and Anna gradually relaxed, even giggling when Tommy demonstrated how he could flip a pancake and catch it in his mouth. Dad, can Amy and Anna open presents with us? Tommy asked while they ate. David's heart sank. He hadn't thought about presents. Tommy had a few gifts under their small tree, but there was nothing for the girls. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that life isn't always fair like that? Tommy, the girls didn't bring any presents with them, David said carefully. That's okay, Tommy said with the simple generosity of childhood. They can share mine. Amy looked up from her pancakes. We don't need presents. Mommy said this year we might not have Christmas because we don't have a house anymore. The casual way she said it broke David's heart. These girls had clearly been living a difficult life for a while. No wonder their mother had made the desperate choice she did. Well, David said, thinking fast, maybe we can figure something out. After breakfast, while the girls watched cartoons with Tommy, David stepped outside to make some phone calls. First, he called his ex-wife Kelly to explain what had happened. She was shocked but supportive, which was more than he'd expected. David, are you sure about this? She asked. Taking in 2 kids you don't know? I couldn't just leave them there, Kelly. You should have seen them sitting in the snow on Christmas Eve. What does Tommy think? He's over the moon. He's been wanting siblings forever. Kelly was quiet for a moment. Okay, do you need any help? I have some of Tommy's old clothes in storage, and some toys he's outgrown. That would be amazing, actually. I'll bring some things over this afternoon. Next, David called his neighbor Mrs. Patterson, an elderly woman who'd always been kind to Tommy. She had raised 4 daughters and might have some clothes that would fit the girls. Of course, dear, she said when David explained the situation. I have a whole closet full of things my granddaughters have outgrown, and I think I might have a few extra Christmas presents I bought on sale last year. You never know when you might need them. By noon, David's apartment was bustling with activity. Kelly arrived with bags of clothes and toys. Mrs. Patterson came over with more clothes and, true to her word, several wrapped presents she'd been saving. Even Tommy's friend Jake from next door stopped by with his mom, bringing over a puzzle and some coloring books. Amy and Anna watched all of this with wide eyes. David could tell they weren't used to so many people caring about their well-being. "Why is everyone being so nice to us?" Anna asked David while people were sorting through clothes to find things that would fit. "Because that's what people do when someone needs help," David said. "When kids need something, adults try to help. Our mommy said most people don't care about kids like us." David felt a flash of anger at their mother, then immediately felt guilty about it. She'd been desperate, probably doing the best she could in an impossible situation, but what kind of things had she told these girls about the world? "Your mommy was wrong about that," he said gently. "Lots of people care about kids. Look around." That afternoon, they had an impromptu Christmas celebration. Tommy insisted on giving Amy and Anna the first pick of presents. The girls were hesitant at first, like they weren't sure they were allowed to enjoy themselves. But gradually, surrounded by laughter and kindness, they began to smile. Anna fell in love with a stuffed bear that Mrs. Patterson had brought over. Amy gravitated toward the art supplies that Kelly had found. Tommy was delighted to have someone to share his new video game with. "David," Amy said later while they were cleaning up wrapping paper, "is this what Christmas is supposed to be like?" "What do you mean?" "With family and presents and everyone being happy?" David realized that these girls might never have had a real Christmas before. The thought made him both sad and determined to make this day special for them. "Yes," he said, "this is exactly what Christmas is supposed to be like." That evening, after everyone had gone home and the apartment was quiet again, David tucked all three children into bed. Tommy was sleeping on the air mattress they'd set up in the living room, insisting that Amy and Anna should keep the big bed. "David?" Amy said as he was turning off the light. "What is it?"
When do we have to leave?
The question he'd been dreading all day. Officer Martinez had said it would just be a few days, but David was already dreading the thought of these girls going somewhere else. "I don't know yet," he said honestly. "The police officers are still trying to figure everything out. Can we stay until they do?" "Yes, you can stay as long as you need to." Anna spoke up from her side of the bed. "David, do you think our mommy is okay?" David sat down on the edge of the bed. This was the hardest part of all of this. These girls still loved their mother, still worried about her, despite what she'd done. And David was starting to realize that there might be more to the story than anyone knew yet. "I think your mommy loves you very much," he said carefully. "Sometimes adults have to make really hard choices, and sometimes they make mistakes. But that doesn't mean she doesn't love you." "Will we see her again?" Amy asked. "I don't know," David said. "But I promise you this. Whatever happens, you're going to be okay. There are people who care about you now." As he turned off the light and headed to his makeshift bed on the couch, David realized that what he'd told the girls was true. They were going to be okay. But what he was just beginning to understand was that this situation was changing him too. These weren't just two children he was helping temporarily. Somehow, in just 24 hours, they'd become part of his family. 3 weeks had passed since Christmas Eve, and David's apartment had settled into a routine that felt surprisingly natural. Amy and Anna had started sleeping through the night without crying. Tommy had become their fierce protector, teaching them card games and sharing his toys without being asked. The girls were laughing more, talking more, and starting to act like the children they were supposed to be. David had called his boss and explained the situation. Surprisingly, his employer had been understanding, even giving him some time off to get the girls enrolled in school and handle all the paperwork that comes with emergency foster care. Officer Martinez checked in regularly, but so far no family members had been located for Amy and Anna. "We're still looking," she told David during one of her visits. "But honestly, it's not looking promising." Their mother didn't leave much of a trail to follow. Deep down, David was starting to hope they wouldn't find anyone. The girls fit into his life in a way that felt right. Tommy was happier than he'd ever been, and David found himself looking forward to coming home each day to the sound of children's voices and laughter. But on a cold Wednesday afternoon in January, everything changed. David was at work when his phone rang. It was Officer Martinez, and her voice sounded different. Serious. "David, I need you to come down to the station. We've received some information about the girl's mother." "What kind of information?" "I'd rather explain in person."
Can you come now?"
David's stomach dropped. Is it bad news? Just come in and we'll talk. David left work early and drove to the police station with his heart racing. He'd grown to love Amy and Anna like his own daughters. The thought of them being taken away, or worse, finding out something terrible about their mother, made him feel sick. Officer Martinez met him in a small conference room. She had a file folder in front of her and looked tired. "We found Linda Chen," she said without preamble. David felt the air leave his lungs. "Where is she? Is she coming back for the girls?" Officer Martinez opened the folder. "She's in a hospital in Los Angeles." "David, she's very sick." "What do you mean, sick?" "Linda has terminal brain cancer. She was diagnosed about 4 months ago, around the time she lost her job and apartment. The doctors gave her 6 months to live, maybe less." David stared at her, trying to process what she was saying. "Cancer?" According to the social worker we spoke with at the hospital, Linda had been trying to figure out what to do about Amy and Anna. She has no family, no support system. Her ex-husband disappeared years ago. She was facing the reality that she was going to die and leave her daughters with nowhere to go. The pieces started falling into place in David's mind. The girls' comments about not having a house anymore. Amy saying their mother told them they might not have Christmas. The pajamas that looked like they'd been worn for days. So she was living in her car with them? For about 6 weeks, yes. She'd been parking in different places each night, trying to keep them safe and fed while she got sicker and sicker. David felt tears welling up in his eyes. He'd been so angry at Linda for abandoning her children. But she hadn't abandoned them. She'd been dying. That night on Christmas Eve, Officer Martinez continued. Linda drove around looking for a safe neighborhood where someone would find the girls quickly. She'd been watching your street for days, seeing how quiet and family-friendly it was. She parked near the bus station, bought a ticket to Los Angeles, and used the last of her money to get to a hospital there. Why didn't she just take them to social services? According to her journal, she was terrified they'd be separated or put in a facility. She wanted them to be found by someone who would care about them, someone in a neighborhood where families lived. David wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "How is she now?" Officer Martinez looked down at the file. "She's not doing well. The cancer has progressed quickly. She might not have much time left." They sat in silence for a moment. David was trying to wrap his head around the fact that Linda Chen hadn't been a selfish mother who abandoned her children. She'd been a desperate, dying woman who made an impossible choice to try to save them. "Does she know where Amy and Anna are?" David asked. "Yes, I spoke with her yesterday. She wanted to know if they were safe and happy." "What did you tell her?" "I told her they were with a good man who was taking excellent care of them, and that they were thriving." David's throat felt tight. "Did she want to see them?" "That's actually why I called you in. She does want to see them, but she's scared. She's afraid they'll hate her for leaving them. And she's afraid of how she looks now. The cancer has changed her appearance quite a bit." David thought about Amy and Anna at home, probably helping Tommy with his homework or playing with their dolls. They still talked about their mommy sometimes. Usually when they were sad or confused, they'd never stopped loving her, even though they didn't understand why she'd left. "I think they need to see her," David said finally. "They need to understand what happened, and she needs to know they're okay. It would mean traveling to Los Angeles, then we'll go to Los Angeles." 3 days later, David found himself on an airplane with 3 nervous children. Tommy had insisted on coming along to support Amy and Anna. The girls had been quiet since David explained that their mommy was sick and wanted to see them. "Will she look different?" Anna had asked. "She might," David said honestly. "Being sick sometimes changes how people look on the outside. But inside, she's still your mommy who loves you." The hospital in Los Angeles was bigger than any building the children had ever seen. David held Amy's hand while Anna held Tommy's as they walked down the long hallway to Linda's room. Linda was awake when they arrived, though she looked fragile and much thinner than David had expected. But her eyes lit up the moment she saw her daughters. "My babies," she whispered. Amy and Anna ran to her bed, carefully hugging her like they understood she was delicate. All 3 of them were crying. "I'm so sorry," Linda kept saying. "I'm so sorry I had to leave you." "We missed you, Mommy," Amy said. "We were scared," Anna added. "But David took care of us." Linda looked over at David, who was standing back with Tommy, trying to give them space for their reunion. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely audible. "Thank you for saving them. They spent 2 hours together. Linda read them a story. She told them how much she loved them and how proud she was of how brave they'd been. She explained in words they could understand that she was too sick to take care of them anymore, but that David would make sure they were always safe and loved. "Are you going to heaven like Grandma?" Anna asked with the directness that only children have. "Yes, sweetheart, but I'll be watching over you always." When it was time to leave, Linda pulled David aside. "Will you keep them?" she asked. "Not just until social services finds someone else. Will you keep them forever?" David looked at Amy and Anna, who were showing Tommy a drawing their mother had made for them. These girls had become his daughters in every way that mattered. "Yes," he said. "If they'll have me, I'd be honored to be their dad." Linda Chen died peacefully 2 weeks later, but by then, David had already started the adoption process. Amy and Anna grieved for their mother, but they grieved surrounded by love, in a home where they belonged. 1 year later, on Christmas Eve, David tucked his 3 children into bed and thought about how much their lives had changed. Sometimes the most beautiful families are born from the most difficult circumstances. Sometimes love finds a way even in the darkest moments.